Hello guys, in this part we'll continue our polling application. So let's start. The first thing I need to do is creating a new poll and listing polls that I created. So as you can see here in my database, I have no polls and I will create a new one quickly. And it's created. Back to our database, refresh, and here's our start at and end at. Status by default is pending because it will start in the future. And here is our options. This table, red, green, blue, and votes count is 0. The first thing I need to do is listing the polls. So I will create endpoint here, function index, and here polls equal to current authenticated user, right here, and I will use polls relationship, polls, and paginate, list 10 per page, and here I will return view. I created a view here called list inside polls folder, this one here, right, and I will return here polls dot list back and create our endpoint, and here our root is get here, and our controller is polls controller, the same one class, and our method is index. Back here, refresh, and slash poll, and here's our data all poll, update, delete, show. Here's our blade, right, and it's static. Let's make it dynamic. All right, so here I will add for each, here add for each polls as poll, and paste it here poll title, and status here poll status, back and refresh, and here's our variable is polls. I need to add it here, compact polls, refresh, and here is our poll. What's your favorite color? And this is pending. I use only status and the title column, so let's use select here because it will select all columns, but I used only title and status. So here title and status, refresh, and now it works. Let's update it because it's pending, right? So here our endpoint function edit, and it will be poll here, right, and return view. I created also another view here called update here, this one, and it's used for updating a poll. Back here and return polls dot update, right, and here compact the poll. Back and create our endpoint here also, and it's get slash update slash poll, right, and update again. Back to our list and use this root. Let's name it, for example, poll name poll.update or edit, and back here inside update let's remove href, and root here poll dot update or edit, and in the second parameter I will use this poll, right, because it receives parameter for poll here, and inside our controller I'm using the poll as root binding, right. Back and refresh, it missed a poll, and the reason behind that, if you notice here in our index function I am selecting only title status, but for root binding parameters it depends on id columns also, so I must also include the id, right, because I'm using it inside edit method, and also I must fix this from edit to, or from update to edit. Back again, refresh. Now it works. Here update slash 1, right? If I click, it moved to title or updating the view, right? Back here to our update.blade, and let's add h1, for example, here h1, and I will say update poll here, and poll title, maybe to be more clear, let's make it 3, right? And now it's good. Here at column, and let's fill our data. So I want to fill here the title, and the value will be here, as you know, poll title. Back and refresh. What's your favorite color? And if you notice in our start at column inside polls here, we have the full date, right? Date and time. So we need to separate them. So if I back here in my poll model here, I will create a new attributes. Let's remove it, and I will say here function get start date attribute, right? And I will say return this here, or sorry, carbon parse this start at this column, right? And I want only date here to date string, right? And the same thing here for time. Function here get start time attribute, also return here the same thing, but this time to time string, right? The same thing for end at here. So instead of start, I will say end. This end will be capital, and E also will be capital. Another thing, if you noticed here, when I select a date, right, this one for example, it's like that, December, DEC space 26, right here, and the comma, then year. So we need to create the date like this format. And the same thing for time. If I click a time here and AM or PM, it returns time and PM in capital letters. So how to do that? Back again to our attributes here, and instead of to date string, for date, right, this was one format, and I will say here return month, M, capital M, space, and the day, right, then comma, after that the year, full year, right? Back to our tinker to show that PHP artisan tinker, and if I select the first poll here and start at, right, by the way it returns carbon, so we will fix it also. And I will say here format this one, let's copy it, this one only, MDY, and add it here. It returns the same format like this one, right? So here instead of parsing, because we parsed it as date time, we will use it directly, this date time or this start at here, this start at, and again here this end at. Back and refresh, and the same thing for time also. Let's make it return like that here, time, PM or AM, so we can do it easily like that. Instead of to time string, we can say format here and time HI, hour and minutes, and A represents PM or AM. The same thing for and time here, this one, and let's use these values. Back and refresh. We must add semicolon here, refresh. Let's fill them now. So back here to our update, and start date will be value using this mutator here or accessor here. So it's start underscore date, right here, pull or pull, this one here, start date. Back and refresh. Here is our date from our database, December 26, right? And also let's complete other fields. Back and refresh. Here we have our field for updating. Let's also fill our options here in our Alpine JS. I will parse our options, right? So back here to our pull controller, and I will say pull equal to pull here, and load its options for lazy loading. Back and refresh. Okay, it works. So here in our update, I will say here for Alpine JS options will be here JSON encode, because we're dealing with JavaScript, right? And will be pull options. Refresh. Let's make it here as string, sorry, cut and between to these signs, and the same result. And for I inside options here, refresh. So let's remove it here, refresh again. Here we have our results, right? We must parse it like that, JSON encode, and the value here, value like that will be I dot title, or what is its value here in our database, options will be content, sorry, option dot content. Back and refresh. Here our red, green, blue, right? So instead of I, let's make it meaningful using options here, options and options, and inside Vue.js or Alpine.js, the second parameter represents the index. So refresh. If I remove it, it's removed, options 0, right? And here also instead of 0, let's add 1 here, so it will be I plus 1, and also from options to be option, right? Refresh. Here 0 1, I think this from JavaScript, so let's add it between parentheses. Refresh. Now yeah, option 1, option 2, add space here. And here for removing method, we will remove it completely, right? And we will say here remove option method, and remove this option dot id from options array. Here is our method, remove option, right here, and it takes parameter array of option. And here I will say this dot options, these options here will equal to this options dot filter. I will filter the array using function here value, alright, or option. So here it will loop around options and filter and return any array or any option that's its id not equal to the selected id. So option id not equal to past id, right? Back, refresh. Let's remove it, for example. Now it's removed. Let's remove blue, it's removed. Remove green, it's removed. But if you noticed here, we have a rule. Every poll must have at least one or two options, right? Two options, right? So I will back here and I will say if here this dot options, or yeah, this dot options, this one here, after deleting I will say options number equal to, don't forget this, right? And here this dot options dot length, here back and refresh, open our console, here remove, and we have an error. Let's remove it, refresh again, remove. Now it's set to 2. Let's log it here, console.log this dot options number here. Now refresh, equal to 2, equal to 1. So we need to refresh. If options number equal to 2, show the alert that we can't remove more, because each poll must has 2 options at least, right? So here if this options equal to 2, alert each poll must has at least 2 options, and return without deleting, right? Refresh again, remove it, it's removed. Let's try to remove it. Now we get our alert and it didn't remove it, right? So now let's implement our update method in backend side. Here I will say function update, and we will execute our code here. And I need also to create a request. So artisan php artisan make request update poll request, right? And here our class update poll request, here's our request. If we back here to our update class or update request, it return, it must be the authenticated user, right? Here must be is the user of the poll, or the user who created this poll. So here it will be this poll. So we need also to define this poll as a parameter, right? Here back to our controller, and I will say also we must pass poll into the request or the URL, right? Like this one here, and back again. And also the only pending polls must be updated or can be updated, and here, and this poll status, right, must equal to here poll status pending, right? It's easy. So here I am check if the current user who want to update this poll is the owner of poll, and also the poll status must be pending, right? And here like create, so create poll request, I will take everything here, right, and pass it here again, and let's add our carbon. Now the same things, I'm taking the title, start at, end at, and options, right? Back to our controller again, and here I will say data equal to request save here except, take all except options, right? And here our poll update data, and for options here poll options, here delete them, right, and recreate them again. Poll here options save many, like create many, and I will say here request options, then return here to root, right? Let's back to our index here, so let's give it a name, poll dot index, it's a name method, and after updating back to index of polls here, poll dot index. By the way, this to root method is equal to here response, right, root and poll dot index, right, as you can see here. It's a shortcut. So let's try to update it here. Let's create firstly our root for updating, and it will be here like that. Method will be put, and our method is update, and here our update again. Back to our form inside our blade, and here poll dot update parameter is our poll, right, method post, but also we need to add method here equal to put. Back and refresh again here, and let's update it. For example, instead of blue, let's add pink, right, here pink. Save. It's not authorized. Let's back and check here our update pull request. Let's try and dump the first one. It must be as the poll or user, right? If we back to our poll, we have a relation, or we must define this relation actually. So here it will be function user and return this belongs to a user, right, belongs to user class, and the foreign key is created by here in our database, if you remember, created by inside polls table, this one, right. Back again here, refresh, we must add semicolon, right, refresh again, and let's change it to pink, right. Save. It's not authorized again. Let's die and dump here, die and dump, sorry, dd, refresh, it's true. It must also, we need to access the value of enum, right. So back again, refresh, and it's true. Let's remove die and dump, remove parentheses again here, refresh again, and we have an error. Save many must be type of array or models array given. So back to our controller, and let's die and dump here dd request options, refresh, and it's array. So instead of save many, we can use directly here create many, and we can pass array here also, right. Back and refresh, let's remove it, and it's updated. Let's check it again here. Now it's pink, red, green, pink. Let's remove green and set it to blue, for example, and it works. Back, and now red, blue, pink. Also, we need to make it work. Add options, letter, or sorry, button works. Back here to our blade again, right, add options, and on click here I will say add option method, right, add option, and here I will define this method. Back again, add comma, add option here, and I will say this dot options push, and push an object, right, because you know this options is array of objects. So back again and refresh, add option, it's added, add another one, it's added, and if we remove it, both of them is removed because both of their id is undefined or null. So we need to add a random id. For example, here id will be math dot random, right, refresh again, add option again, remove it, it removed, add another one, it's removed also. Add option and let's add another one, for example green. Save and it's created. Back to update. Now it works fine, right? What if we added one and make it empty? Back again, it must be fillable, right? And we need to add it also. And go save, it works. Back again and remove this one also, remove blue, try to remove it. Now we receive this error or this message. Save and it works. All right, so let's implement our delete method. So only pending ones will be deleted. Back to our controller here, and I will say function delete, right? It will also receive poll and our poll here, and I will say if this status poll status equal to pending, poll status pending value here, or if not equal, I will say abort here. Abort code will be 404 and the message will be no pending poll, right? Back again, otherwise remove it, poll delete and return back. All right, here let's implement it in our root web, and temporary I will define it as root get and delete slash poll, and again our controller here, this one's dot delete, and our method is delete, right? And also when we delete a poll, we must delete its options. So here again, delete options first and then delete poll itself, right? Back to our blade here, list, delete and root, this one, copy paste, instead of update it will be delete. Back and refresh. Now it works. Here's our poll slash delete. What if we set its status to active, for example, or start? Save, refresh, delete, not found, because here its status is started. And if we set it again to pending, save, back again, refresh, and if we try to delete it, it's deleted. Refresh, no poll, refresh, no options. Great. Back again to create a new one. Let's define this root here, our root. So here name poll dot create, this one, and inside our list add here href is root poll dot create. Refresh, back again. Now we can create a new one quickly, and it's created. Now we need to implement a command to start the polls automatically, right? So here I will say php artisan make command start pending polls, and here in our commands, let's close them. Here start pending polls, this one, I will start pending polls. So we here set the dates. It will run every time to check the polls between start at and end at. If time of now is between start at and end at, it will start this pending, from pending to started, right? So here I will say polls here, poll start, and it starts pending polls, and I will say here pending polls equal to here our poll, right, where here multiple, where started at is less than or greater than or equal now, and end at, here it start at only, not start at, and end at greater than now, right, and also its status must equal to pending. So poll status here pending value. Let's add query to update bulk here, right, and update by setting status to poll status is started value. So let's test this query. If we open our Tinker here, PHP Artisan Tinker, and I will say here poll where start at, here let's change the date to all date. For example, start at will be 24, right, so it must be started. For example, here where start at is less than, here less than or equal now, first it returns, and also where here end at is greater than or equal now, again also returns, and status is pending, right. So now or the current date must be between end at and started at or equal started at, right. Let's define our command inside kernel, here our kernel, and I will say here schedule this one command. Here is our command start or poll start. Back here and refresh. Let's test this command here. So by using PHP Artisan schedule run this command, this one here, schedule run this one, right, PHP Artisan schedule run Artisan, and it works. Back here, refresh, our status is started and it works fine. Now let's move to voting process, and let's create a new table called votes, right, here PHP Artisan make model vote and create migration. Back here, and let's go to vote, and I will say guarded will be null, right, and also in migrations votes here I will say table foreign ID poll ID and constraint, and also the same thing for option ID and user ID. Also another column may be useful for user IP address, and I will say IP address, and it may be nullable. So back here to our controller, and let's show our vote or poll. First let's migrate it, PHP Artisan migrate, and now it's migrated. Back again, here also close it. Here our poll controller, and here I will say show it here, function show poll, and here poll, right? And I will say if the poll, or if the user is the owner of poll, show it anyway, right? If poll user equal to current authenticated user, right? Then, or even we can use is to be more meaningful here, return view show polls dot show and compact the poll here, poll with options, poll equal to poll load options, right? Otherwise, for other users, if its status is not equal to started, return not found. So if poll here status not equal to poll status started value abort, right? So even we can use abort if directly here like that instead of using if. This one, and the same thing again, return show poll. It will be 404. Back to our web and create routes here, route get here slash poll, and we will say use show method, right? Here show, and name will be poll dot show. Back again, refresh, and poll slash, for example, poll ID number 1. Back to our database. What's the ID? ID is 2. Back again here, undefined property auth user. Okay, it's function, not property. Poll controller, and it must be function. Refresh, and now it works. Here's our blade, by the way. Show, and it's static. Let's use it now. And instead of title, I will say poll title. Refresh, it's work. And I will define the diff for human date. So if we back to our poll model, I will say here function get end at or end date format here, and I will say return this end at diff for humans. Back and refresh, and I will use it here, our poll, and our poll is end date format. Actually, we can use it also directly instead of using underscores here. I don't think so. It will be attribute, must be attribute also here. Attribute, back and refresh, and is 2 days from now, right? And also we must loop around options. So here I will say add for each poll options as option, and here option, and its value also will be the ID of that option, will be also here option ID, and instead of option 1 it will be option content. Here option content, refresh. Now we have 2 options as here in our database. Back again, options red and green, right? And also we need to define a method that retrieves the selected vote from user. So here in our votes table we have poll, option ID, and user ID. right? So here in our show method, this method, I will say here selected option will be equal to here our vote where poll ID equal to this poll ID, right? And again where user ID equal to current authenticated user ID, right? First, return the first result because every user will have only one option. Let's wrap it here and also return ID. Let's add null safety, and instead of where here we can define a relationship inside our poll, so we can say here function votes, right? And return this has many votes, right? Here vote class, and we can use it directly here now inside our controller, so we can use poll instead of vote here. So we can say poll here votes and where user ID current user ID, and also compact it here selected option, and let's first die and dump selected option to avoid errors. Refresh. It now works for this user, so we can use it here just for testing, right? Refresh. Now it's null, right? Also we can use it here because the owner of poll can also vote in this option or in this poll, right? So we can compact it anyway. Here compact also selected option variable. Back and refresh. Now it works. So it's automatically checked here. We can make it dynamic also. Instead of check, we can use if and end if selected option here equal to this option ID. Option ID. Let's add it here. Use checked. Back and refresh. And because we don't have any values, no one checked, right? Our vote method. So back to our controller, and I will say here our method is vote, and I will also create a new request. Here I created already vote request, and I will use it here for vote request. This one here, vote request and request, and here our poll also poll. Let's create our endpoint here, post and slash poll ID slash vote, and use method vote here, and I will name our route is poll.vote, right? Back here to our vote request, set it to true, and I will say here option ID will be required and must be inside options table ID, or exist. Here exists inside options table inside ID column, right? If I back to my shop lead, I will change name from option to option ID, and here in our controller I will use the same value here if he already have a selected option using first directly, right? And I will say poll vote, and here or votes here update or create according to user ID, right? Here user ID equal to current authenticated user ID, update or create, and I will say here option, right? Directly here option where or find option ID, request option ID, and increment it. Increment votes count in this column, right? So if he, for example, selected red 0 plus 1 will be 1, right? And if he already selected green will be minus 1. So we will implement it here, increment, or yeah, increment, and here increment votes count column. And if he has a selected option or previous option, we will say decrement it. Here if he has selected option, or selected option will be decreased, here decrement, right, votes count, and back again, return back. Now let's test it. Back to our show blade, and inside action I will say root poll dot vote and use poll current or selected poll to show or to vote. Back and refresh. I will select red, for example. Let's try it, and we have an error. Field option ID doesn't have a default value. Yeah, also for update or create, here option ID will be the selected option. Request option ID, this one here. Back and refresh. Now it works. Back to our database. Red is 1, and votes here option ID 21, which is red, I think. Yes, and selected by user ID number 1. And if we back here to our view, it must be selected, this one, red. And the reason behind that, if you noticed here, back to our controller, I selected here, I checked if the selected option is ID, right, votes ID, but we must check the option ID, not ID, right? So it returns 1 instead of 21. So here I will say option ID, right? And again here, back and refresh. Now red is selected. What if we change the value from red to green? Vote, I voted here, option decrement. Yeah, we must decrease the option value, right, or option model. So we will say here option, instead of that I will say also option, or load option, or directly even we can use option here, option, and we must define this relation inside vote model. So here I will say function, right, option, and return this belongs to option, here class. So refresh, currently it works. Back to our database, refresh. Now 1 1, because we set it, we had error while refreshing it, so let's fix it manually. Now refresh again. I will set it to red, vote, and now refresh. As you can see, green -1, red +1, and our votes here we have the same column, but option ID is updated. Let's change it to green to make sure that it works. Refresh, and option ID is green 22 here, right? And now it works fine. Alright, so let's write a command to finish the ended polls according to end at column. So here I will say php artisan make command and end polls, right? Back here, and inside end polls I need to close them here, close, And inside our end polls I will say polls end here, and I will say ends finished or started polls, and here I will say poll right query where here status must be started, here poll status started value, and also end at column must be less than or equal current time, and update its value to finished status will be poll status finished value. Let's test it inside our Tinker, PHP artisan Tinker, and I will say here poll where end at is less than or equal now. First, we don't have any results because the date in the future. What if we changed this date to old date or to a date in the past less than current time? So I will set it to 24 also, and imagine it ends at 8 p.m. right? Back and rerun our query. Now we get this query here and status is started, right? And here let's define our command inside our kernel, copy and over our kernel, and the same thing here, and I will say end and run both of them every minute. Here every minute, back again, and let's run our command PHP artisan schedule run. You can write it also like that. Now it worked. Back here, let's check our status, and it's finished, right? Because the date is in the past. If you noticed here, we can still voting, right? So it ends 22 hours ago, so we need to add some controllers here. Back here to our controller, poll controller, and we need to check a port if poll status here not equal to started poll status started value, right? 404, and don't even show it if its value or if its status not equal to started, right? We added this control also, and I think it works correctly right now. Back here, refresh, and also we need to add it inside our show method, I think, right? So here, if it's not equal to started abort 404, yeah, it returns because this is the user who is the owner of that poll. So if I back here or log in as another user, let's create a user quickly here inside our Tinker here, and user factory, create a user, this one. Back here, login password, it's logged in. Let's copy this one here also, and it returns 404 because he is a normal user. What if the owner try to vote here? It returns 404 because it's up. Back to our all polls here, right? Update, it's still updatable but it's finished, right? So we need to add control here also. Back to our update view method or edit method, and we will do the same thing. If it's updated, return 404, right? Here, sorry, not here, inside edit method. Refresh, it's 404, right? And we need also to add some control here to make sure that the user who want to update or open edit page is the owner of that post or that poll. So inside this we can use the same code here, right? If current authenticated user is not the owner, we will apport 403, right? Apport F here, but instead of is we can use is not the owner, abort 403. Sorry, not this parameter. Here we can use it here. Now refresh this poll, we can use poll directly. It's 404 because he is the owner of that post. But what if we try it with another user, right? Let's try to log in again. Open it. We need to log in. Back to the user. Here, copy, paste, password. Now he received 403. Back to admin panel here, and we need to activate the show button. Here, back to poll, not create, listing once. Here, show, we need to activate this button, right? If we back to show method here inside our list.blade, and we will say root.show. This one, show, refresh, and now show. Now it works. Also, let's show the number of votes. Show here blade, right? And we can say here option vote count or votes count. Refresh 1 2. Let's remove it, 1 and 2 here, and that's it. If you like this project, support me by clicking on like, share and subscribe. See you in next videos.